Thank you all for coming to the afternoon session. My name is Clint Burson. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Chamber of Commerce. Before I introduce you to Paul and the panel, I just wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, First Interstate Bank, they're our title sponsor. They're a big reason why the state of Missoula workshops are happening. But we've also got sponsorships from Northwestern Energy, Anderson, and I can't pronounce the last name, so forgive me, Zermulin. I'd never get it right. And Market on Front, they're all sponsoring events so that you guys can be here and be a part of this and we can keep the cost reasonable. So I'd like to introduce Paul Gladen. He's with Blackstone Launchpad and he will be moderating the panel today, and I'll let you handle the other introductions.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Some of you heard this line before, but the accent is English, not Australian. Generally impolite to tell an Englishman he sounds like an Australian. Anyway.
I was thinking Scottish, so thank God. Thank God you said something.
I've had just about everything. It's pretty bizarre, but anyway. So my role is to moderate, which is really to get these folks to do most of the talking. We'll definitely open it up to some Q&A. This is a pretty small group, so I suspect we can really take Q&A from the audience as we go through. So if you have a burning question, maybe related to something they've said, feel free to just jump in with that. So we'll do quickly just very brief introductions so you know who all the panel are and kind of what their role is as an entrepreneur. All these folks are entrepreneurs in various stages, although Joel's also an attorney. And then we'll get them to talk a little bit about their kind of relationship to each other, which I'll explain, and we'll just start to talk about this mentoring process. What is it? How did they get into it? What do they get out of it? What are some of the do's and don'ts? And get into some of your questions. So that's the plan. So, John, do you just want to give us a brief introduction? Although most people hopefully have already.
Yeah, I don't know if I need to introduce myself again for the fourth. This will be the fourth introduction. But John Hagmeyer from now Commonwealth Growth Group. And really excited to be in Missoula and look forward to this conversation.
I'm Nick Shantz. I'm a software developer and I co-founded GeoFly. And by day I still put in time at the University of Montana.
And I'm Joel Henry, and despite being a lawyer, I'm actually a pretty nice guy. Briefly, my background is that I was a computer science professor for 20-some years. And then I decided to go to law school, take my sabbatical and go to law school, which was a great idea until you actually do it. And then it's not so much fun. But anyway, now I'm an attorney, and I'm a full-time attorney, and I focus on the startup and growth phase businesses from corporate and transactional law through intellectual property. And I've been a mentee and a mentor, so I feel quite fortunate.
Can you give us like one line on the business you started as well?
Yeah, I started a business with the generic name Agile Data Solutions, but what it does is it uses natural language understanding to find evidence in large amounts of email and documents for attorneys and law firms. Because their problem used to be, gee, the client says, here's my email, and it was maybe that much, and they could put it in a binder. And now it's like that much, except it's all CDs. So it's like millions upon millions of emails with all kinds of attachments. And you just can't physically look through it. So that's what my business does.
That's totally true, by the way.
Yeah.
When we took on our investment, I had to go back and get something. They sent me a CD, and I couldn't find it. I was like, "What are you kidding me?"
Nuts.
That's a smart move. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah.
That's something I learned.
And it's amazing what you find in email. You tell people, don't put that in an email.
No, I'm learning.
Oh yeah, and then they put the stories I could tell.
I'm Stephanie. I'm very concerned about my email inbox right now. What did I say?
What did I write?
Right. Entrepreneur in Missoula. Me and my husband have 4 concepts and 12 businesses. coexist as entrepreneurs, and then I've also been very active in the kind of startup entrepreneur world in Montana, just in liking to be a part of helping people take that first step in what it means to be an entrepreneur and define it for themselves, and then go and get after it and get it done. So I live in that space.
Hey, Steph. I'm Matt Gangloff. I'm the founder of Enlighten Lab Float Center, which is a new spa coming into town which features sensory deprivation as wellness therapy. My experience in entrepreneurship in Missoula is basically based on being in the right place at the right time with most of these people. So happy to be here.
So we've essentially got two mentor-mentee kind of relationships here, and then John's going to share some of your own experience, some of which you've already done very insightfully in the last day or so already. But and I think one of the things we want to get out of this is kind of mentoring, coaching, consulting, lots of different ways in which people get advice and guidance from others. So it's to explore that a little. But maybe we can have kind of Nick and Joel, maybe you can just talk a little bit about sort of how did your relationship sort of get started, and what does that relationship look like a little?
Sure. So I was once upon a time a computer science student. Although I didn't ever have Joel as a professor, I think that's probably the first time we maybe met or were introduced. But I feel like our relationship was really organic. Doing work in IT, being part of computer science, we just sort of got to know each other. And then, as my sort of career progressed at the university, Joel was someone that I could reach out to and just sort of bounce ideas off or if I was struggling with the politics of the university, he was someone that could, at the very least, commiserate or maybe help me sort of steer those waters. And then as my partner and I started GeoFly as a business, Joel had sort of started his business and been successful there and had sort of good wisdom for us from a legal perspective as well.
Right.
The last thing I'll say is I think there's probably, we've been in business for about 2 years, and I think there's sort of 2, maybe 3 moments where people gave us like real, honest, truth answers, and Joel was the first of those that kind of made sure we were on the right point in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I think my role in this was more of having been mentored in the past, taking what I had heard and what I'd been through and sort of listening to what Nick and his partner Kyle were going through and just sort of talk frankly about that. And I don't think everything that happened to me and that I went through applied to you. But I think there was sort of, we had a come to Jesus or whatever your current God of choice is, discussion one day where I said, I know you guys are thinking about the next week or the next month, but let's talk about what this looks like 6 months or 12 months down the line. And many times I think folks start out and they say we're going to do this, and then we get to a point we'll sort of do a check and we'll see where we are and decide what to do next. And I said to Nick, that's what I did, and it left me sort of totally blind beyond that checkpoint. And so we had a discussion about what happens when your business grows and what it takes to go somewhere and sell things, and then the lag in time between selling and getting any money, and which one of you is going to use your phrase, go all in. Go all in, because one of you had to do it. Otherwise, you were going to be stuck in this point of, well, we're successful, but we're not that successful. And we're successful, but we're not successful enough to do that. And then you get sort of some technology stagnation, so to speak, where you need to go back and reinvest in your architecture. So we had a pretty interesting meeting. When I left that day, I remember you guys, I think there was still blood in your body, but there was none in your face. I'm absolutely certain there was none up here.
Yeah, we so that day we had just participated in the business plan competition, and we took third, which we were a little bit bitter about, but that's all right. But immediately during that day, we had several people come up to us and say they wanted to invest. And so for us, it was like we were, it could not have been a better day for us. Like we had participated, we had got lots of good feedback, we had like people that were interested in giving us money, and that's when sort of Joel like brought us back to earth and said like, think real hard about this choice and make sure it's the right one, and make sure in a year you'll think, yeah, that's the right choice.
I think I said,
Can
don't
jump in
take
and
any
ask a
money.
Yeah.
question?
Yeah,
When you
sure.
said, when you used the phrase go all in, maybe you talked about this earlier, but
John
I mean,
did.
John talked
are
about
you,
it
are you
yesterday.
talking about
Hashtag
either one
it
of
then.
yours focus or time or financial resources or all of the above?
Yeah, so we were both my partner and I were full-time at the University of Montana. He in a sort of a marketing director role, and myself in a sort of web management role. And I think it was pretty clear that both of us trying to work full-time jobs and start this business wasn't really going to work out. Yeah, my business partner is now no longer with the University of Montana.
Yeah.
So let's pause on that, and then let's just hear from Matt and Steph about how their relationship sort of started and has evolved.
Yeah, sure. So my approach to entrepreneurship kind of started with my education. I was a business student at the University of Montana, and through that got more and more involved in the entrepreneurship angle of it, and ultimately did kind of the same route that Nick did, competed in the business plan competition. Ultimately, that business that we presented then is not what I'm currently doing. But what that kind of pushed me into was at that level, when you're kind of a college student, one of the things that's really pushed on you very hard and emphasized a lot is networking. Kind of going out and meeting all of the people that are in the community and taking advantage of things like Launchpad and business plan competition and all these kind of services that you can pick up on. And so I kind of started with Paul. I was one of the first interns at the Launchpad, and I started through there, and then the business plan competition, I started meeting more and more people. Ultimately, Mike Braun, which is funny because I'd never taken a class from Mike, but Mike Braun is a professor of management at the university. And ultimately, that's how I met Steph. So I kind of see this as a nice evolution from education to networking to this next level, which is, as we know, a real kind of mentor-mentee relationship is a lot more than networking. You're actually meeting not just anyone who will meet you, but the right person who can help you with the right things at the right time.
Yeah, I nailed it. What's funny about us being introduced through Mike Braun is that is who I would say has been my mentor. Since I graduated from college, he helped me launch my first business. He helped me negotiating selling it when I went and sold it. He advised me when I hated my company and when I loved it. And so I've always taken Mike really seriously. And so when Mike asked me to meet with someone, I always know that it's someone that it's important to him that I meet with the person, and that there must be some benefit, because he wouldn't have me meet with someone that he didn't think I could contribute to, which is how Matt and I met. And then it was never, and I think this is an important piece of mentorship, we didn't go into it like, hey, do you want to mentor me? Sure, that sounds like fun. Like,
I didn't Google
let's
mentors.
go, let's go on a blind coffee date and see if this works. It's like we got set up to go out to coffee and talk about his business model, which was really similar to a business model I'm in, and see how I might be able to help him, talk him through some of the hurdles he's going to have ahead of him. And then we just kept meeting. Naturally, a problem would come up and he would call. I'd take the call, and then it naturally evolved to a point where it was important for me to take his call. Like, I might have been busy doing something else, but I knew if the phone rang and it was Matt, that it was probably important, because he wasn't calling me with, stupid crap, I guess you could say. It was important stuff that he needed to talk through. And so just like it was important to him, it then also becomes really important to the mentor, which I'm sure they could agree with, is it's a valuable relationship both ways.
Yeah.
So that's the two dimensions I want to sort of get into next. So really from a mentee perspective, what are you sort of hoping to get out of the relationship? And John, you can probably talk about this from both perspectives, and then let's talk about what do the mentors get out of largely what seems like it's just a giving to somebody else. What do you get out of it? Maybe if we can, maybe John, I mean, obviously when you first started getting kind of advice and mentoring, what were you, or how have you absorbed that now in terms of what do you get out of those relationships?
So it's really interesting. I know now from both ends of what's needed or what do you want. So from a mentee, I kind of knew what I wanted, and now I kind of outgrew my mentors. I did. We outgrew and we sold the company. They knew that, and wasn't anything bad about it. In fact, the last 2 years they were my board of directors, but they were no longer the mentors that were in the beginning. What I needed from them in the beginning, it's kind of like employees who actually make it through your company. They're the ones who started with you, and they actually change, and they get better, and they do this, and they adjust, and okay, there's now 35 employees, not 4 of us. Okay, we can no longer bring a 6-pack of beer and stick it in my desk. I got it. Okay, next. That's a good mentor. They'll know what you need. Here's what I could say is what I needed was honesty, sage advice from somebody that had done it. And what they need, and I know what they needed because one of my mentors is writing the foreword for our book. And he said, what should I write? And I said, why did you meet with me? I didn't pay you. I didn't give you any money. I didn't give you any advice. I mean, why did you meet with me? And he said, you were one of the first people who actually listened. Mm-hmm. He goes, I had those coffee dates. That's funny you said that. I had those coffee dates one time, and I realized within about 10 minutes, they already had their own answers, and anything I was going to tell them just went in one ear and out the other. It's almost like talking to your teenage daughter. I'm going to use that. I finally said to her one day, I don't care if you like my advice or not, just nod your head, thank me, move on, do what you want to do. I said, you can do that. With one of my mentors, out of the 3, who became, we call the 3 wise men, Leon told me 9 words pretty much every time I met him. And I either heeded those 9 words and I thanked him 6 months later, or I apologized 6 months later because he was right. Those are the kind of people you want to put in your life. And so it was interesting when I said that, from a mentor perspective, it was almost like, it really is, I'll say this, I think my father's happiest moments were when I said, Dad, yeah, you're right. Right? You do. You think about that. My dad felt good. He gave me some advice. His son listened. That was a good day for him. And that's what Russ, Leon, and Ken were for me, is I wouldn't contradict them, right? And even when I wanted to contradict them, because they would say, you need to do this. And I don't know if you guys saw the rolling thing. Russ had, put your big boy pants on. You're the CEO. And he actually said that to me in a meeting, and I was just like, wow, he just called me a wussy, man. Holy mackerel, But he was right, because in the end I was the CEO, and that was that. So the honesty and all of that, but from both perspectives, I now find myself, I just want y'all to know, I don't waste my time with people when they're asking me something and we talk, and they start regurgitating back to me that they know already. I don't need to tell them. I end the conversation. I got better things to do in my life, and that's kind of where a good mentor is going to be there. So you cannot go in there. You better go in there with hat in hand, and you better be humble. Or don't do it. You're wasting everybody's time.
Nick, what about you? What are you having to get out of?
I think, like a lot of creative work, like entrepreneurship, there are like the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think that one of the things is sort of like balance. When we were like in the clouds because people wanted to invest, Joel said, come back down and find the world again. Or when you're struggling and you're not sure what's happening, like helping to sort of celebrate the wins that you've got and remember that, the world's not ending. And then, just the experience, like the things like, and it's even in passing, like, hey, you should reread this document just to make sure that it's sort of covering the things you expect it to, or that you think about.
Joel, you referenced the fact you sought out a whole bunch of mentoring and advice from people when you were, and took some of that in terms of advice you gave Nick. What, out of that experience, did you, maybe some things that were really helpful and some characteristics that were helpful, as well as some things maybe you saw that weren't?
Yeah, I think I'd echo John that if you're going to sit down and talk with somebody and they're going to tell you they already know it, like I read that book, I know what to do. Then I'm like you, I'm okay, yeah, I got another thing, yeah. But on the other perspective, when I was being mentored, I sat in with some folks who started telling me stuff, and I'm thinking, I think I heard that on a television show. Wasn't there a television show about Silicon Valley or something? And these guys are telling, yeah, just give it away for free. And then, like, that's a fad thing. I mean, and so I think a lot of times when I was being mentored, I had to really sort through what I was hearing. And it took a lot of patience, because sometimes I'd be sitting there listening to this stuff and they're just regurgitating something they heard on CNN. But if I just was patient enough, finally I might get something I could use. So then when I became a mentor, I found that one of the best things I could do is not talk. Nick and
Yeah.
Kyle, what do you guys want to do? How do you feel about that? Where does that take you? What does that impact your technology? What does that impact your pricing model? And then maybe at the end I'd talk. And I felt like that was maybe a little better way to go about it. But I can say one other thing. Being a mentor, when someone like Nick or someone else, because I'm working with a lot of companies now, they ask me something, in my head I'm thinking, holy, I don't even know. And what comes out of my mouth is, I don't know, but I know somebody who knows that.
There you go. Right.
Because sometimes if you're mentoring someone, you feel like, I've got to know everything, right? Or they're gonna lose confidence in me. And then what you find out is when you're honest back to them, I don't know, but I know so-and-so, and I'll find out from that person. And then you get the honesty, in my opinion, both ways.
I would say that in my experience, with staff, I don't do a lot of sifting through, so I'm sorry you had that experience.
Yeah, I
but
did.
I don't do a whole lot of sifting, and I think what I've found, Steph, and correct me if you disagree, but the what I'm going to do, we're always kind of in line. And I think anyone with kind of a business mind, generally speaking, knows what they have to do. They have to break even, or they have to develop a strategic marketing plan, or they need to hire well. You know generally what you have to do, and through the process of talking out those whats, you realize, often I think we do that, yeah, that's pretty much what you need to do. That's not the reason you have a mentor. I think the value add from a mentor is, why do you need to do that? And that's where I think things shift a lot, because you think you need to do things for different reasons than you actually do. And then how to do it. You're talking to someone who's done it before, and hopefully you can jump that first iteration we all make, where you do something and you gut it out and you struggle through it and you kind of figure it out, and when it comes out it's really not what you hoped, and maybe next time you'll get it better. How to do those things is huge. And then the last part is when. It's like, okay, so work with someone, you know generally what your business is going to do and what it's going to look like. When do you pull the trigger on those things, and how do you prioritize them? That's where you really get the value add from someone who's experienced it before. And so I think trust your gut when you're the mentee, and just say in as plain terms as you can what you're trying to accomplish, and then lean on your mentor for when, why, and how.
I think too, I think you're totally right. The advice they gave me had nothing to do with the educational technology market, nothing. And I'm just gonna go through in 10 years the things that they taught me. Had a very loved employee kill himself. How do you deal with that? I'm on the phone. Police are calling me. They went in the house because he hadn't come to work for 2 days. He had no family. We dealt with that. And I remember, and I said, what kind of company are you? We literally were all the employees, and I didn't know what to do. And they said, you got to get everybody together. And what's so interesting, what you just said, they said, John, you'll know what to do. Use your heart. You have such a good heart. Tell me exactly but get all your employees together. You'll know what to say. And I said, okay. And he said, I want you to call Jeff Smith, my executive coach that had hired. He said, I hear he's counseled with people. Why don't you talk to Jeff? See if he can just come in and just sit in a room, and if people need to come talk to him. These are all things that I had no idea. Well, yeah, okay, yeah. And I use that story because a friend of mine calls me a year and a half later. He said, we just had an employee die. And I heard that you had to deal with that. What'd you do? And this is here you are sitting here going, yeah, okay, here's all the things we did right and we did wrong. But you're right, they never told me what to do. In fact, my biggest fight with our investor, who became a very close friend of mine, was he would walk in and tell me what to do. because that, they're putting a lot of money. They kind of have that tendency. I don't know if you ever, those of you taking on an investment, they kind of. And I sat down with him and I just said to him, well, before that, let me be very clear. I called what we call the three wise men. I said, I can't go this way. And they said, then step up and deal with it, John. I said, what do you mean? Sit down and talk to him and tell him, this is how you work. This is how you think. And I remember having that meeting, Thanksgiving, 2013, my office, scotch on the table, Matt and I, Spetzler, here's another Matt Spetzler and I sitting there, and I said, Matt, you got to quit telling me what to do. I said, ask me what I'm going to do, and then all the advice you give me, trust me, I'll listen. But just ask me what I'm going to do. I grew up with a family of 7. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. You start telling me what to do, my fists are coming up and we're going, right? Whether you're right or wrong, that's what I'm going to do. And so it was always I totally agree with you, Matt. They never told me, all right, here's how you sell into the educational, here's how you sell a SaaS product. It was, what are you thinking? And then have you thought about this?
And I think like a polished mentor, even if they disagree with what you're about to do, they'll qualify that with one of those other things, which is, okay, maybe a good idea, but it's the wrong time, and here's why. You see what I'm saying there?
Right.
Yeah.
Steph, what do you mentor?
Yeah, so I like what Matt said because it's how I know of mentoring and coaching. And it's something I always say to people that I'm working with is that I'm not meeting with people I don't believe can achieve what they want to achieve. I wouldn't meet with those people. So my job is not to tell Matt what to do. What we do when we meet is I facilitate him processing his own thoughts and solutions and help him create action plans around that processing. So I feel like my role in our relationship and others is that he has the answers. How he's going to get to the goal might be different for me, but I'm okay with that. I just need to help him facilitate laying out that map so that he has direction to follow.
And it feels a little bit like therapy, and it's very it's cathartic, it really is.
It's not therapy.
But just having someone to kind of sit there and listen and process those things out with you is often all you really need.
Yeah. But on the why I mentor, I felt like I was really lucky to be developed really young. I was surrounded by, I felt like, the best people in business from pretty much day one of wanting to be in business. So I had every great advisor, every great lawyer, every great accountant along the way. And I almost had some guilt associated with that at one point where I was like able to do so much so quickly. And it's always just been as like to reconcile that, although that's probably not the right way to say it, is it's always just been really important to me to then give that back, to make sure that that person out there that wants to dump their life savings into their company, a lab or whatever it is, has the best chance to succeed. Because I think that a lot of people, being an entrepreneur is really hard. You guys are mostly entrepreneurs, right? Like it sucks on a lot of days, and then it's really great on other days. And so having someone to come along you and cheer you up when you need it, to help you stay focused when you need it, is really important. And so to be able to give that back to like the type of person I like to mentor is a first-time entrepreneur. And so to be able to give that back to someone knowing that they're like so excited right now and they're gonna hate life in 2 months and help them through that is just really rewarding, and it feels like you're giving back not just to yourself feeling good, but to your community.
Can I say one of the most important things for me was from a time perspective, when we were growing, they came in on our strategic hires and they interviewed, they were in the interviews, the final interviews. So we did a lot of all that, but they would come in on the final interviews and interview with me, and it was so big because I would have hired so many of the wrong people, and we would get out and I'd be like, keep in mind, I've pre-interviewed all of them, and I was like, all right. And I would go, okay, what do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, there's no way you're hiring that guy. I'm like, why? And they'll be like, this, and this, John. And I would go, oh yeah, I didn't see that. You get caught up in the emotion. And the Tom and Marcy hires at the end that really propelled us. Leon, the 9-word guy, we went through, can't tell you how many interviews. After Tom's interview, got up, looked at me and just said, he's got 2 hours to get back home in North Carolina. I suggest you have that offer locked down before he gets there. And walked out the door. And I went, I mean, there was just no question, you know. But that's what a mentor did for me was they sat in those rooms with so many different people, and they knew what fit me, and they knew what fit our company, and man, it was just, that was the most, probably, well, that's one of 20, but that was just so big because it saved me some bad hires. It really did. Yeah, ones I would have made.
So let me ask maybe a couple of almost sort of tactical type questions, and then we'll open it up. In terms of sort of like, how often do you meet? Do you have formal structure to that, or is it kind of on call? You've talked about the fact you've had multiple kind of mentors, and here we're just showcasing sort of individual relationships, but kind of Nick, Matt, and any of the other people you think of as kind of mentors, just some practicalities of that relationship.
Nick?
I guess I would say we don't have like a formal schedule at all. I meet with Steph every 2 weeks though.
We're not here together though.
That's a totally different relationship.
That's different.
I'm not cheating on you,
You're
Joel.
cheating on me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And you brought that up in a public forum. What the hell?
Missoula's a very small.
It's true. It was coming out.
But actually, yeah. So, and actually, Joel and I, we work in the same buildings, like GeoFly and his company both live in the same building. So I've sort of popped over before, and that's been really nice, just proximity.
I'd say it's on call.
Yeah, like when I'm panicking or losing my mind, I call Joel and help me.
Or we'll run into each other and
Yep.
say, for just example, randomly, a brewery.
Yes,
And
randomly.
suddenly our 10-minute how you doing thing becomes a 40-minute discussion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But really, to your point, I think a mentor is a good idea, but lots of them is a better idea. From whether I came to see you or I saw Mike Braun or whoever it was, I think that made sense. And you alluded
Yeah, I
to
had-
3 wise men. I think that's,
I had 3. We met once a month. I worked around their schedules. Cost me a beer and a lunch normally is what it was. And then they became the board of directors. That was the shift. They became, they were 3 of the 5 board of directors.
okay.
So
And
what were you looking for in terms of what was different about the 3 of them?
What
If
was
anything, or was
different?
it just sort of?
So they had I don't know about you guys, but so all 3 of them had built and sold companies. And they were probably the 3 most respected in the technology, the business community. And I did have no freaking clue why they would spend time with me sitting me down. And Ken Ferris he's the first one I met with, and then quickly realized we need to get others to help. And he actually asked another guy, he just sold, Bonds Hart just sold Meridian for $500 million. And he had asked Bonds to help, would you want to sit on this council? Because Bonds was
So
just,
what did he see that said kind of, boy, you need help?
so we had grown.
What
we
else
had-
was he looking to bring to the
Yeah, so we had
conversation?
grown 800%, and then we grew 100%, and then we grew 100%. And so in that process, he's just like, this is really, you've got something I think we need to bring. Like I would just say, Joel, they would have said the same thing. One mentor is great, but 2 or 3 of us working together, right? It's going to be a lot better. And
Did you meet with the 3 together on a regular
at
basis?
all
Always?
times, at all times, but they were also on call.
Yeah.
So I could call them, but like you said, Matt, you just didn't pull that card for, hey, I'm looking at hiring a support rep today. I want to talk. That was something major had happened, and I just want to get your advice. I'll give you one just really quick. We were hiring a strategic position, and a guy had applied, and they asked me to send me the resumes, and I did. And one of them came back to me and said, get that guy off your thing now. 10 years ago, he stole technology from another company that we know of. And he goes, how would I know that? Right? How would I know any of that? How would I have ever found that out? But because I had mentors that were really involved in the community, just things like that just saved you so much. So, but we met monthly, and then I met quarterly, but I could call them anytime. But that was
What's your setup?
I feel Matt and I have 2 different relationships, right? So we have a mentor relationship, and then we also have a coaching relationship. So we meet every other week, and the coaching relationship is more about, and that's what I have with Nick. No,
I feel
you're
so
still
much
the
bad.
mentor.
So Steph, do you want to explain the difference then?
Sure, yeah. So I also coach, and that's where I really spend a lot of my time with new entrepreneurs. And our coaching relationship is more around Matt determining the main objectives to make his business successful. So really putting him out there as big goals and creating very clear strategies and actions around how to achieve them. So that meeting every other week is very structured, very organized. There it has very clear objectives and has like this is how it goes every time we meet, and where's the progress and what's next. And I would say I do very little advice giving and speaking in our coaching relationship. And then in mentoring relationship, it's different. It's probably not in that time that we're meeting. And that's more in spaces of, I've got a problem I need to talk through. And it's
usually
random.
I'm close to tears.
No, yeah, and I think that's where a mentor is really valuable in being on call is when you're new and you have a lot of money on the line, like small problems feel really big. It's sometimes really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel or to see the way out or the way to success. And that's why I was saying earlier, like when Matt's calling, I pick up because you don't want him to like go rogue, but usually it's
wild.
just like needing to talk through something to process your own thought and get out of the clouds to see what the solution is and then go after that solution.
Yeah.
And that's a different thing from coaching.
Yeah, and I would add to that, from the coaching perspective, I like the structure. I feel like it is, I mean, Steph is the secret sauce, but the structure that she's built around it is what kind of drives the results. And so we meet, is it bi-weekly? Is that every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I can never, if that's twice a week or every 2 weeks. But then I
Right.
have kind of a check-in on a week that we're in the interim weeks where we're not meeting. I have like, I want to get 50% of these things done. And so we do kind of have checkpoints, and that just, like you always say, Steph, like being an entrepreneur, you could stay in your pajamas all day long and like no one will care. And I think through the structure that we have around coaching, I know at least one person cares, and they care a great deal. And obviously I don't want to let you down, but I don't want to let myself down if I've said I'm going to do something. So I think structure works good. I also think it's invaluable to have someone that you can get to on the other end of the line when it is, code red, as I like to say. So both are really different and really integral in the process. But I like to think that, or I try to just have mentors from everyone that I meet, because I think that you can learn something from all kinds of different people. It doesn't need to specifically be a coach. It just happens that with Steph, it's so great for me because at least one of your businesses is so similar to mine, so similar. So she's great both from a coaching perspective and a mentoring perspective, which is just kind of more directed, pointed questions like, hey, I know you've done this, how?
So
And do
Tell
I-
me how, so I don't have to
Yeah,
duplicate it.
exactly.
is the coaching relationship more about accountability?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, the accountability is to the degree in which the coachee pushes themselves outside of their comfort zone. I'm not going to be hard on someone that doesn't accomplish a goal. I'm going to facilitate them thinking through why they didn't accomplish it and
Yeah.
whether or not it was important to them.
Maybe that's the right way to talk, because what I'm thinking about as someone who is an entrepreneur as well, when I started, it took me a while because I'd been in the professional services environment for 14 years. As a partner there, I was used to having, even though I was a partner, there were other more senior partners, was used to always having someone who I would be checking with, okay, should I do this or should I do this, or hey, you need to do that, and telling me what to do. There was always someone to check in with, and as an
Right.
entrepreneur, you
And
suddenly
that's-
have that aha moment, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there is nobody to ask that to.
That's
So if
why I
you've got
always
a
use like
coach
the
who's-
Netflix example.
Yeah.
Like if you want to binge watch Netflix now that you're an entrepreneur, you can, and no one gives a shit, but your business might not succeed.
Right.
So if you want some built-in
Yeah.
coaching and accountability, I could be that.
Right, yeah.
But
It's not-
Netflix
and
is
it's
good
not
too.
that I need you to potentially bash me, it's just the fact that I'm gonna have to meet you and fess up to
And
the
you
fact I
told
Netflix
me what you
binged
want to
instead.
accomplish.
Right.
Verbalizing what you want to accomplish is probably the key there.
Well, I think it's why does it matter?
Right.
What I mean by that is we used to say about our employees, you know, they're on Facebook or they're whatever, they're binge watching whatever. And we would, in the end, this is what my mentors would say, who cares? And are they getting their job done? Are they doing what they need to do? You know, are they interacting well or whatever it is? Whether it's, I'm not gonna use the binge watching, but it's really what is the outcome, like you said? If the outcome of you binge watching is your business is gonna be hurt, yeah, you might wanna see if Steph can hang out with you for once every couple of weeks. But seriously, I mean, those are good steps to take, but where great mentors, where the coaches really get you to focus in on is, it has nothing to do with binge, like you said, if you want to, that's great, but know what the consequences are, and to be able to do that with your employees, and do that with yourself, and do that as you grow, it's just, it's a big stuff. We had cable television in the basement when we first were working, and I thought they would watch TV all day long and not work, right? And I didn't, then you gotta stop and say, well, what if they did watch TV and actually got the work done? What does it matter? I mean, you know, in the end, you want the work done. That's what you want. How do you get there? What if I did it from, like Matt programmed till 4 in the morning? That's when he coded. I mean, you could probably jump in and say,
Yep.
that's what happens sometimes.
Yep.
I had no understanding of that, by the way. I didn't understand people did that.
All right, so let's open it up. Who has some questions for these folks? Right at the back there.
For those of you that are doing the mentoring and the coaching, have you been in a situation where you were dealing with someone that you realized shouldn't be going into business? They were gonna take their credit cards or their parents' savings or their savings and open up a coffee barista shop, and they just had it decorated and had a great recipe for scones, but you wanna hear about how to operate a business? How do you handle it, or have you been in that case?
I don't know,
Well, for me, I would just tell you, you just literally have these conversations where they want everyone else to go all in except for themselves. That's what you kind of hear. It's kind of what you just kind of explained. I would say to you, I don't think I've ever heard anybody that, in a sense, I would say had a bad idea and they shouldn't do it, because I wouldn't know. But if you don't get the sense that they're willing to, if they're not the ones willing to risk it, so many have asked me to risk it for them as they were asking for advice. They want me to risk it for them. You know, that's when you know you're just wasting a lot of people's time and money, because I'm not going to be passionate about your idea. Nobody will except for you. And if like Nick and I'm sure Matt and Steph and you at one point, we all had to go on, and Joel, we all had to go all in. So I think a coffee barista is an awesome idea if that's what you want to do and you want to make it the greatest coffee barista ever, you know. But
I think that what we're really talking about, though, is like a small percentage of the population. I mean, like, most businesses probably fail not because of a bad business model, but because someone doesn't have the drive to get through bringing it to market. And I think that if you're out seeking a coach and, you know, putting aside these people who are, that we talked about, who just really don't want advice.
Right.
If that person's out there and they're active, I mean, maybe there's some people that are really motivated and just have a really wrong direction, but I haven't met one yet.
But I think just based on what I do in the Launchpad,
Yeah.
kind of week in, week out, I mean, I probably talk to 150 entrepreneurs a year who have ideas at various stages. And the thing I love about our program and the philosophy that came from the University of Miami is it's to help the students and the faculty and staff we meet with explore entrepreneurship as a viable career path. So it's a journey of exploration. It's not my job. I'm nowhere near smart enough to tell them whether their idea is any good. And it won't be me or anyone else that tells them, be the marketplace. So we're helping them take the steps to figure out the things they need to do to figure out if they can be successful with it. If they've got the determination, most of them will figure out a way. It may end up looking a heck of a lot different to what they started with, but they'll be successful.
May
So
not
I think
even
it's
be the
I
same
don't think it's the
business.
mentor or the coach's job to say, this is a dumb idea, you shouldn't do it. It's like,
That would
here are
be
some
horrible.
questions, you need to go get some answers.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on that, because I've had two that I can think of that I know as I'm driving home, I'm thinking, they're out of their mind. But I think I'm with you, it's not my job to say that, but I will say this, when I'm having those thoughts in my head, you're out of your mind, I'm asking questions to guide them to understand why I came to the idea that they were out of their mind. I wanna lead them to that painting that I'm looking at, and I wanna sort of put some rails on it so they understand the risk, the downsides, where you'd be at the end if this didn't work, or what you'll be going up against. So it's kind of like I'm hoping they'll see it. But, back to my slimy lawyer job, there's many times I have people call me and say, I'm gonna do X, and I'll say, you can't really do that, and here's why, and they say, well, just write up some language and I'll do it. And I have to come back and sort of say, here's my email to you telling you that I'm not going to do that because, and after that, if they go do it, there's nothing I can do. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I try to lead them to the water trough that they shouldn't be drinking out of, and then they can see why and not do that. But some people, you can't stop them. You can't head them off.
Yeah.
Clean.
Can I ask a follow-up question around education versus guidance? So for those that are mentoring, how much time do you feel is a moment of education? This is a decision around financial analysis, this is a decision around market viability, whatever. And then how far do you take that responsibility of being the educator? And does that still shape and come out as guidance, or do you truly tell individuals that they need to learn more about XYZ topics so they can be more informed in their decision making?
Well, I think the kind of question you just asked, for me, it's really tough in the sense of, for me, what worked out in my world was the question you just asked from the financials and, this and that's to me a board of directors. I would want to put in not a mentor group, but an actual board of directors. That's their job. They're going to really help me get to that, the budget, the finances, the expansion, the scalability, all those. From a mentor's aspect, I really do. I think it's a real, I don't want to say a one-off type of a thing, but it really is in a sense of, here's what's happening in my moment, and I know you've experienced that. This is what I'm thinking about. Is that right? And they're going to ask the next 4 questions so I can answer those. And I think it's just two totally different. That's my opinion. It's just two totally different things of utilizing someone's time and expertise, and two completely different. I think there's just 2 different forms for that. I don't think it's a mentor's. Once again, I think you start crossing a line as a mentor, and they're really getting, I would say, down the weeds. I don't think a mentor would get down in the weeds on that.
Yeah.
I don't know, you guys can tell, right?
It's a funny kind of thing with education, because you can kind of go out and learn whatever you want to learn. You can YouTube it, someone will teach you how to do it, but that presupposes that you know what you don't know. Where does that fit in?
Yeah, you know that you don't know that.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna go, yeah, the problem is you don't know what you don't know, right?
Known knowns and known unknowns.
No,
Yeah.
So I have a question. I really appreciated the day yesterday, thank you. John did a great job, as well as Linda and the rest of the panel. But I kept hearing all in, I heard all in today, and I sort of get all in. I understand really long days, really long work weeks, and developing your product and your brand and what it takes to own, operate, and manage a business with multiple employees. Okay? I got that one figured out. I also understand the concept of more of an open office and setting goals and objectives and managing that way, so it's not just 8 to 5. That's not necessarily the example for the highest productivity. What I'm having a little trouble with is how, as individual people who have spent the time and the resources to go all in to create a business, how do you manage your time between the employees that need your mentoring and coaching, right, and the outside element that is great for your personal benefit and growth, right? But when you're mentoring Matt, you're not mentoring the people in your office, right?
Right.
You have a family too. I caught that yesterday.
Yep.
All right, so let's start putting the time balls in the air. Here's the family.
Yep.
Here's the business and the employees. Oh, here's Matt.
So
Okay.
you're under the assumption, which is a great one, because all of us do that you're the one that's going to do all of those things. Where my big one is I found Stephanie. Truly, I'm going to say this. I found Stephanie, I brought Stephanie into my life, which is Jeff Smith, and Jeff coached me, so here was my coaching, I got mine.
Right.
I had the CEO roundtables once a day, I went all through all that. But the other thing I didn't talk about yesterday, we really invested into our employees' growth, okay? So Jeff worked with the executive team and then the management team, did that. We started paying him to do that. We built in where our leadership was now starting to mentor, not me. They used to call it the John Bomb. I'd come by and sit down their desk and stick my feet up and go, all right, how y'all changing people's lives today? And they're like, I'm working, but the CEOs, so that started to go by the wayside where we started utilizing, as you grow, there's a point where you are only scalable as a human, so far as that's what you're kind of asking. For us, it was we brought in people, brought in experts to free us up to not be just bogged down with everything. So.
I would say, so right now, I work for the University of Montana from 8 to 5. I have 3 employees. I'm starting a business, and I have a family. And the best way I have figured to combat that is just to be like real upfront and communicate with everybody. Like the employees that I have, like I used to put in like 60-hour weeks for the University of Montana, just for the university. Like I used to do the work from 8 to 5 and then go home and do more work. So when I stopped doing that, the folks that worked with me at the university were like, wow, like we can really feel this. Everything is slower than it was before. And just being honest with people and like honest with my wife about like if she wants me to work less hours or find different hours to work, trying to sort that out, as opposed to you can't do everything. So being clear with the people around you about what you're gonna do and try to manage those expectations. I mean, they're not fun conversations to have, but that's one of the things I think Steph's helped me with a little bit is just talk about it with people and try to, sometimes you have to be more formal with things that you used to not have to be so formal with. Like we grocery shop on Saturdays at about 1 o'clock. That's when it fits in the schedule.
I could answer your question too if you're okay with that. I think you give a really good point of when we're spending our time with mentors and all this stuff, are we mentoring our own employees? And I know for me, I can say I'm not spending enough time mentoring my own employees. And it's probably unfortunate, right? Because I'm super passionate. We all tend to spend our time on what we care about, right? And I really care about first-time entrepreneurs to the expense of probably mentoring my own employees. I came to that conclusion though, and I made sure my managers were really good and had a lot of structure around what it meant to be a mentor to the people they were managing. So in short, I don't mentor my employees well because I'm more passionate about mentoring entrepreneurs. And maybe they'd be better off with me there.
You make a great mentor, you're very honest. I appreciate that.
But if you're trying to say to you, I feel like your strength is with entrepreneurs.
Right.
And so you to me, this is how I would view it. If you switch that, you could become more of a hurdle over here than adding great value here. But if you're hiring the right people and empowering them, and letting them, we don't need 25 cooks in the kitchen.
Sure.
You empower and trust and hold them accountable. I think that's I think what happens is we all feel guilty. I think that's what happens. Is we just feel, whether it's feeling guilty about my wife, about my daughter, about my managers, about my whatever, you just feel guilty because you only have so much time and I can only shop with you at 1 o'clock on Saturday, right? But I think that's our problem is we feel so bad and nobody says to us, it's okay if you don't spend time with me. It's all right. It's okay. I feel it's all right. We don't get that. We get the full guilt trip that falls on us. And I think we're all people. I think one thing we don't talk about entrepreneurs is I think and by and far entrepreneurs are very kind. We are. I think we're just kind people. Most really good entrepreneurs I've met are just kind people. We want to do well. We want our employees to do well. We want our communities to do well. And so we're really great at feeling guilty about stuff. And so,
I hope that, and I don't know if this is true, this is just a philosophy I'll throw out, but I hope that it's kind of like a pay it forward situation.
Absolutely.
Where, yes, Steph is taking time away from her employees, but she's mentoring me, which is saving me a ton of time, so that maybe later on down the road, I'll have the time to
You'll do
mentor
the same
people the
thing.
same way.
absolutely.
And I don't know if that's true, but I hope it's true.
No, I think that's
Let's go
definitely
with
true.
that.
Yeah, let's go with that. I feel better.
But I think the other characteristic of entrepreneurs, I mean, certainly when you start a business, is you'd have to do everything.
Yeah.
So part of, I think, what this mentoring, this coaching process is to help you understand how and when to start bringing other people in to do things. And that's really a lot of your answers were, well, I get other people to do some of that.
Well, we're so used to kindergarten soccer. Have you ever watched kindergarten soccer? Everybody runs to the ball to kick the ball, right?
Right.
That's starting a company. That's what we all do. There's a ball. We're gonna kick it. You're trying to tell these little kids, no, Joey's the one who kicks it when it's over there. But we're so used to that, right?
When you're the custodian of the vision.
Yeah, you've got it all, right? We're not only kicking the ball, we're coaching. In fact, we're talking to the parents over here too. And this is our problem, and it's trying to break away from that, right? And literally, what are those levels? And just from what Stephanie just described, I don't know how big your company is, Stephanie. I really don't know that, but just from what she described, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I always tell my wife, I told her, I said, I'm just through being apologetic. I just am. I feel like I've apologized for 10 years about everything. I do. I feel like I've apologized for 10 years. And so I think that's the mentor. I think you're right. It's our job to pay it forward.
Well, I also wonder though, Steph, like in those situations when you do have to step in and maybe talk to a manager, and do you feel like your time spent outside of your businesses with me makes you more effective when you do have to step in?
Sure. I mean, growing and developing in any way as a leader is going to play out in your own business. I step in when it counts, right, to my own company. I have the hard conversations when I need to have them. But then I also believe that my managers need the autonomy and ability that I trust them to be mentors to other people, which could, as you might imagine, be a little intimidating when my role outside of the store is mostly to be a mentor to people and coach, but they're fully capable, and I step in when it counts. So yeah.
Thank you.
So John said it just a minute ago that entrepreneurs are very kind, so you've all been very kind to share your time and expertise for this kind of last hour, so I really appreciate that. And what I would say is, I mean, all my experience in this Missoula community, and I think you've observed this, John, is a very supportive and collaborative community. So if you came to this because you're looking for some mentoring or some coaching, there are a lot of people here to kind of help you do that, so reach out. And I'm also going to promote the final 2 activities of the state of Missoula today, which is starting at 3:30 over at the Public House, which is a new kind of co-working and event space, which is right next to Lake Missoula Tea Company on East Broadway. There's going to be another workshop on really kind of how do you think about and go about funding your startup. Some great panelists, unfortunately including me, so you're going to have to listen to me again if you want to do that. And then at 4:30, and you can come to one or both of these, at 4:30, the Hellgate Venture Network, which is an entrepreneurial networking group which I co-founded about 8.5 years ago now. We are having a networking reception at the Public House as well, and there is free beer. If that happens to appeal to anyone, you're welcome to come to both of those events. Both of those events are free. You don't have to have pre-registered to come to those events. So, quick hand to thank our panelists.